Hello, virtual friends, and thanks for joining us today for our streaming Lunch and Learn. I look forward to the day that we can get back together, but in the meantime, this will have to suffice. Sometimes it's difficult to get people to come down for an hour and a half and spend some time together, and hopefully this is an easier format for everyone to get together. At our last Lunch and Learn in February on Clearcom HelixNet, you all expressed an interest in learning more about playback devices such as QLab and Stream Deck. We've had Brooks Abbott assemble a presentation on how CTS is utilizing these tools for our events. Please remember when the presentation is over that we will have Q&A live with Brooks. Just type your answers into the bottom of your screen and the questions will come here. I also encourage you to email me should you have any input on the presentation, or if you're looking for us to do any other events, Lunch and Learns. We are committed to doing one of these through the rest of 2020. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Brooks Abbott.
How's it going, everyone? Thank you for joining us today. As Mikey said, I'm going to show what we're doing here at CTS for audio playback. I'm going to show what we've used in the past and where we're moving to. The 360, the instant replay. We've used these for years. I'm sure you've seen them on your show. And they're still being used. Everywhere from the White House to NBA, it's still a very common piece. They're an extremely reliable piece of gear. When you press a button, it's going to fire. But there are some drawbacks because of the age of the gear. It has limited flexibility. You have to import everything real-time analog. So for long clips, you have to spend a long time sitting there watching it record. Also, if you have last-minute edits, it's really stressful trying to get it imported before you have to go to the show. There's also limited playback control. You can only fire one cue at a time. So if you have a show with multiple cues that need a layer, you'll have to use multiple 360s. So this is where we're going. We're going to use QLab. QLab's software-based, Mac only. It has audio, video, and lighting segments, but we're only using audio right now. The biggest benefit is drag and drop. Instead of having to real-time import clips, you can just drag them into the software and you're ready to go. There's also much more editing capability. We can edit the front and the back. We can do fades. We can put EQ in. Let's say a voiceover was recorded by someone else and sounds different. We can EQ it. Much more flexibility. You can also layer and fire multiple cues. Again, 360s could only fire one cue at a time, and this allows multiple to be fired. And then you have multiple output options. We use Dante a lot, so you can have up to 10 channels of outputs. So you can have music beds on one, you have VOs on another, just lots of flexibility. And you can also run primary and secondary machines. So if one does have an issue, you have a second machine you can go to. And now Stream Decks. Everybody loves Stream Decks these days, as well as me. They're very customizable. You can set up buttons to look different. You have multiple pages. There's a lot of flexibility with them. There are multiple sizes. As you can see, you have from 6 buttons up to 32. So you can pick the size of device that works best for you. For us, it streamlines the process. With one controller, I can fire lots of different cues. I can fire different machines, whether it's lighting or audio, even video. And we'll show that later. And we use a piece of software called Companion to control ours. I'll show it later, but it has different modules for gear to allow flexibility of control. So with that said, let's start doing a demo of QLab and see how it works. So if we come to the computer here, I'm going to start by creating a new workspace. You open it here, and this is the basics of what it looks like. There are way more capabilities than what I even use, but I'll show my process. So as I said, you can just drag and drop. So these two we're going to use as a music bed and a VO. So you simply drag them in and it's ready to go. At this point, once I have my stuff in, I usually save my file, and this is where it's really beneficial. If you click File and then Bundle Workspace, I'll name this Demo. You now have a folder that has not only your show file, but also your audio clips. Where this comes in really handy is setting up your secondary machine. So once I have everything on my primary machine, I bundle my workspace, And with a jump drive or with AirDrop, I can just move this folder over, and the shows are going to be the exact same between the machines. So let's expand this and look at how I set up my file. So this here is going to be our first. And I'm going to number this one 2. Oh. So the music bed is going to be 1. And then our VO is going to be 2. So let's look at our music bed. I'm going to go into audio levels, choose Dante, and I want to output on 3 and 4. So I'm just going to choose outputs 3 and 4 from my music bed. One great thing is you do have some other audio effects. So I'm going to go in and I can choose an EQ, I can choose compressors. That way if I need to edit a track, I can do that on spot. You can also do time edit. So I can edit the front, the back, and even put in fades. So now the music's going to fade in instead of just starting. And let's look at how I set up my file. I'm going to drag in a fade, associate that with the music bed. And what this is going to do is going to duck the music when we get to the VO. So I want it to be a 1 second duck. And if I click here, I can hit auto continue. That way, once I hit the fade, it automatically fires the VO. And I want that fade to drop it 10 dB. So now I'm going to go into pre-wait for the VO and set it at 1 second. That way, once music fades, the VO will fire. And then I need one more fade on the backside to bring the music back up to full volume. So we're going to drag that. Again, that associates that with the music bed. I'm going to hit audio levels. And I want it to bring back to 0. And it needs to start bringing the music back 6 seconds after our 6.5 second VO starts. I'm going to hit auto continue. Auto continue. Now as you see, I fire my music bed with the spacebar hit. And then once we're ready to bring on the speaker, I hit spacebar again. It fades the music. It fires the VO. And then it fades the music back up. So essentially, I've programmed it to duck the music so that when the VO fires, we can hear it. And then by hitting exit, it just stops everything. So that's the basics of how I do my QLab file. Now let's look at Companion and Stream Deck. Companion is web-based, and here you have your instances. I have my 2 QLab machines. I have my audio console, Pro Presenter. I've been controlling the slideshow from here, ROS for our switcher, and Grand MA2. So let's start by looking at how I set up for QLab. This is my page, as you see here. I have 2 hotkeys. I use that language. That's what we use with 360s. These 2 buttons here are Pro Presenter control. Then I have a stop for QLab. So let's look at the first button. These are all the actions that happen when you press the key down. If I scroll down, you can also set up key up actions. So for me, I name it. I set up the background color. And then this here, when I press the button, I want it to change colors. That way I know the button actually pressed. And then it restores back to green after 2 seconds, 2,000 milliseconds. And then here's my console control, the QL control. Channel 3 and channel 4 are the left and right of the music bed. And channel 7 is my voiceover channel. And then this is where it's firing QLab. So it fires my primary. And then I have it set where 2 seconds later, it fires my secondary. I do that so if there's some sort of hiccup with the primary, I have a chance to catch the secondary. So let's see this in action. I'm going to go back to QLab. With my first button, hotkey 1, I'm going to fire the music bed. It's going to pull up the faders. It's going to fire the music bed. And then once we're ready to bring the presenter on, I would fire the second hotkey, which fires our VO, and then we'll fade it back up. And then I'll just hit stop once we're done with that cue. So that's the basics of how I use QLab and Stream Deck together. Now we want to show you what you could do for a bigger show with multiple items hooked up. So I have one button. It's just called Show. So let's show how we set up our Show button. What this will do is fire a video, bring down the lights, and then bring us back in. So we bring down lights, it adjusts console levels, we fire the video in Pro Presenter, and then we start restoring lights, console, and then the music bed and voiceover. Here we go. So we're going to do the Q&A portion now. The first question is, how does Stream Deck connect to everything? The Stream Deck plugs in USB to a host computer, and then you can go in and everything else just networks together. So here's my screen with all the different instances we have. If I go into Yamaha, you just have to give everything an IP that coordinates together. So there's the console. We can go into the ROS, and everything just networks together. So you can have a lot of different things connected together. If I'm on a show, I'm going to connect my Stream Deck to my backup machine. That way, my backup is always reliable and isn't relying on a network connection in case we do have an issue. So let's go to the next question. Can QLab be used for multi-track playback? It can. On a show last year, we had an opening artist that sent us 5 or 6 tracks, and we didn't want to bring in Ableton or anything else. So we're able to just go in and give each clip, which we could fire together, different channels for playback, up to 10 channels. So that gave us the flexibility of not having to add another position on the show just for playback. Well, thank you for joining us for this first virtual Lunch and Learn. That was our last question. We look forward to seeing you at one next month.